most people believe that what they need in order to make music is inspiration and coercion and forcing themselves to do it and beating themselves up enough to do it. I've come to the realization over the last 12 years of coaching people and making music myself over the last 25 years or so, that it's probably longer than that now, maybe more like 30. But anyway, I've come to the realization that neither inspiration or coercion are healthy or sustainable. And before you go, what? Inspiration? That's a good thing, isn't it? I'll come to that in a second. I mean something specific by it. All right. So before you completely go, what are you talking about, Mike? Okay. So what do I mean, first of all, by inspiration and coercion? What I mean by inspiration in this context is the idea that I must be excited. I must be inspired to make music. Okay, it can come in many forms. I must be in the mood. I must have an idea. I must feel like it. There's lots of different ways of saying it. I must be on fire. I must be in flow. This idea that I must be inspired in order to make music is what I mean by inspiration. Why it's a problem, I'll come to in a second. In terms of coercion, what I mean is if I don't do it, then I must be lazy. I must be a lazy person. Not I must be lazy in terms of I must become lazy, but I am lazy. If I don't do it, then I am lazy. Or if I don't do it, then I don't want it. Because essentially, requiring inspiration or attempting to coerce yourself, you are actually telegraphing to yourself. The reason that both of these things are unsustainable is that you are telling yourself something. What are you telling yourself? What is the need for inspiration and coercion? What you're essentially saying to yourself is, when I don't feel like it, there's something wrong with me. Things aren't right. This isn't correct. And or my goal to make music. So if I don't feel excited, then do I actually want to make music? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is an example. Or if I'm not making music, I'm lazy or I'm undisciplined. I have to beat myself up. The message that is coming from this requirement that you're either inspired or that you force yourself is there's something wrong with you. Yeah. Or there's something wrong with my goal. Yeah, this isn't for me. Okay. Now let me ask you a question. What's your favorite food? Just think about your favorite food. Do you always feel like your favorite food? So I'm going to say my favorite food is chicken curry. Okay. Do I always feel like chicken curry? I don't always feel like chicken curry. I'm not inspired to eat chicken curry right now. Does the fact that I don't feel like eating chicken curry mean that I don't love chicken curry? Of course not. That would be ridiculous. I love chicken curry and I don't feel like it now. Does the fact that I am not feeling like chicken curry mean that I have to beat myself? Oh no, I'm a terrible person because I thought I liked chicken curry, but I don't want it right now. No, I'm not beating myself up for not wanting chicken curry. And I know that I love it. I know that it is my favorite food. Music making is very similar, not to chicken curry, but the way to think about music making is similar to your favorite food. Sometimes you feel like doing it and sometimes you don't feel like doing it, because the problem with relying on inspiration, requiring an inspiration, needing to be in the mood is that how you feel is constantly changing. If there is something wrong with being a human being, then okay, there's something wrong with you. But being a human being means feeling like making music is constantly changing, just like me feeling like eating chicken curry is constantly changing. So requiring yourself to be inspired in order to make music makes no sense. There's nothing wrong with you when you're not inspired. There's nothing wrong with the goal when you're not inspired. It is simply the human condition. The problem with having to force yourself to make music is it rarely works. Let me ask you a question. Let's say you don't feel inspired, you don't feel like making music. Let's put yourself into a position of probably, I would say, most people who want to make music. Not all, by the way, but most. They feel they must be inspired. And when they're not inspired, they feel they must force themselves. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to force themselves to be inspired. Are you kidding me? Forcing yourself to be inspired? How's that going to work? Okay, sometimes accidentally it might, but you can't force. I know, to get myself into a state of inspiration, I'm going to discipline myself. Oh, yes, I'm inspired. Are you kidding me? So, if you require inspiration, don't coerce yourself. Because really, coercing yourself is unsustainable. I have seen this in so many musicians. I've seen this in top artists, right? You can make music using coercion. In fact, a lot of people do. But just having seen what I've seen is it's unhealthy and it leads to burnout or worse, or much, much worse if you look through the history of music. This is what I mean by an unhealthy creative process. A lot of people have an unhealthy creative process. They have an unsustainable creative process, and it leads to a very dark place. We don't need to be inspired to make music. It's a bonus. And we don't need to force ourselves to make music either, because here's what to do instead. Number one is to get off the music making roller coaster. The fact that it bothers you that you don't want to make music is your validation. If you weren't making music and it didn't bother you, well, that would be an indication that you don't want to make music. The fact that the dips, you go, oh no, that's right there is the indication that you want to do it. So you don't need to worry that you don't feel like it. You just get off the roller coaster and watch it. Your motivation and your inspiration go up and down. You can do that. You can step back from it and just go, oh, look, I don't feel like doing it today. Rather than, oh no, I don't feel like doing it today. How am I ever going to cope? The other thing that you can do is create the conditions to win. Now, this is something that I do regularly, is I ask myself, in fact, I've done it just this week. I ask myself, how would I create the conditions, the situation in my life, in my room, on my computer, on my phone? How would I create the conditions where the worst version of myself, the most unmotivated, the one that just wants to sit on the sofa watching Netflix, where that person would still do it? And then use the little tiny amount of motivation that I have to set things up digitally, mentally, physically, environmentally, so that I just do it. It's a little bit like, runners. Apparently they do this. You might have noticed that I don't often run, but anyway, apparently, doing things like putting your trainers by the door, even going to bed with your running shoes on, that kind of thing. How would I create the situation where the worst in scare quotes, version of me would still do it? The other thing that you can do is you can install habits. So in other words, so you automatically do it. I've just helped one of my masterminders do this, struggling to make music for a long time. And he managed to install I hesitate to say cast iron, because habits are very strong, but they're brittle. So quite small changes can break them. But while they're there, they're very strong, right? If you kind of have an environmental change. So for example, if my masterminder went on holiday, he would struggle for the first few days of keeping up that habit because he's not in the same environment. But you can install habits so that you do it. For instance, an early morning music making practice, or an immediately after work music making practice. But it's almost like you create a trigger So after I do this thing that I do every day, I make music. Pretty soon, just after, not very long, you will start to find you get automatically, it feels wrong when you don't do it. Another thing that we do in Make an Album with Mike, of course, is use deadlines to pull you. Deadlines aren't coercion. Deadlines pull you, they don't push you. What I would call coercion is this feeling like you have to internally push yourself to do something. Deadlines are this external thing that pull you. You're not having to expend the same type of energy. It's almost like you're being pulled by the deadline. And of course, external deadlines work much better working with other people. The other thing about working with other people is if you're all doing the same thing at the same time, it's just a lot easier. You kind of feel this camaraderie. Essentially, with all of those things, getting off the roller coaster, not getting so stressed out that you're having dips, creating the conditions to win so that the worst version of you will succeed, installing habits, creating deadlines, working with other people. You don't need to be inspired to make music. It's a bonus. And you don't actually need to force yourself to make music because you just will. Amazingly, not stressing out about all of these things, that stressing out, that beating yourself up, that wondering why you're not inspired, they are some of the biggest barriers to you making music. It's so complicated. Why is this happening to me? So complicated. It's so much energy that you don't need to expend. You could just focus on doing the thing. You wake up and you go, actually, I haven't done it for the last 3 days. What's the solution? Walk over to the computer, turn it on, and I'm away.